Gorakhpur in 1993, master degree in control system from the BIT Mishra, Ranchi in 1995, and the PhD degree in the area of power electronics and control from the IIT Kanpur in 2007. From 1995 to 1996, he worked in IIT Lucknow, and from 1996 to 1999, he has worked in GB Punk Engineering College, Pauri Garhwal. Thereafter, he has joined MNNIT. Dr. Gupta is a senior member of IEEE, life member of Solar Energy Society of India, fellow of Institution of Engineers. His research interest includes power conversion of renewable energy resources, solar PV and wind energy systems, power electronic converters and its control, power quality, digital controllers, electric vehicles, etc. He has guided 11 PhD and 47 master students. He was a principal investigator for the research projects sponsored by various ministries, including DST, SERB, CSIR, and MNRE. In the area of solar PV and wind energy systems, bidirectional converters, hybrid renewable energy, and microgrid. He has filed patents in the area of bidirectional and hybrid converters. Dr. Gupta is a regular reviewer for many IEEE transactions, including industrial electronics, power electronics, etc., and IET journals, including power electronics, GTD, etc. He has published around 125 papers in reputed international journals and conferences. Dr. Gupta has served as a vice chairman and secretary in the IEEE Uttar Pradesh section and IEEE joint chapter of IEPELCS. He is a recipient of 2013 IEEE Outstanding Branch Councillor Award of Region 10 of IEEE. He is also recipient of 2014 IEEE Outstanding Volunteer Award of IEEE Uttar Pradesh section. He was a first prize winner of 6th Mantra contest in 2006 organized by National Instruments. Two of his PhD students and two of his master students have won POSCO Award sponsored by Power Grid Corporation of India in association with IIT Delhi. He has traveled many countries under university exchange programs and attending the conferences including USA, Canada, France, Sweden, China, Poland, Turkey, Thailand, Japan, Singapore, Portugal, etc. Recently, his name appeared in top 2% scientists in the world under the category of electrical and electronics published by Stanford University. So I am welcoming once again, sir. So please start your session, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Vijay, and thank you to the whole organizing team of your institute who is organizing this wonderful FDP, Faculty Development Program. I also thank your director of the institute who is taking the initiatives for organizing such programs regularly. And I thank all the participants who are there to attend this program, because attending a program is also a big challenge today. So I today thank everyone.
Thank you, sir.
And let us have a patience for another 1.5 hours or so. Please let me remind what is the time limit so that I can wind up in a right time.
So 11:30, sir.
Okay,
Up to 11:30.
exactly around 1 hour 10 minutes I have. Right, so I hope I will be able to deliver you the content, up-to-date content and timely content. So
Okay.
my slide is, I think, visible to all of you.
Yes, sir. Visible, sir.
Okay. So the title of the slide, title of the talk which I have chosen today is a DC-AC hybrid microgrid for low power distribution system. So although I have chosen this title, but I will be talking other things as well through this particular topic. One of the important aspects which we are looking at the moment is a possibility of a distribution system which encompasses both AC and DC outputs. Because the reason is that why I am talking this topic, because we had, 3-4 years back taken a project from Ministry of Renew and Renewable Energy. We have been granted a project and we worked in this area. And the objective was the project is to explore the possibility of providing a hybrid output, means AC output and DC output simultaneously in a small residential or any medium commercial applications, especially for rural areas. And the reason is that nowadays we have so many gadgets, especially if you look upon most of the charging equipments. You have a laptop, you have a mobiles, you have EV chargers coming up. So idea is that because all these basically these are the batteries which need to be charged. So basic idea is that uh, because nowadays we are have AC output 220 volt available to you in your power socket. So what you have adapter which converts AC into DC, and then you basically feed this power after converting AC into DC, and then you charge your devices. There are many AC equipment also. For example, your air conditioners, refrigerator, which is not going to be so easily replaced by DC, but they are ready to be converted loads. Then your LEDs lights, they can also be converted to DC lights. So idea was that can we use a hybrid supply in our distribution system such that I can feed DC load directly from DC and AC load from the AC main supply. So that was the idea, and we started with this project, and we try to do something, some various things we try to do. One of the thing which is at the system level, we try to develop a system, a small distribution system or a microgrid where both AC and DCs are available, and how to use a converters to develop such type of outputs. Other thing which we started is a converter level, that is if there is a converter possible that which can not only give AC output like inverters but can also provide a DC output. So I'm not talking about that aspect. That aspect is almost different. Uh, and we are still working on that aspect, and it's one of our uh, uh, very we wanted to work a lot in that area and come out with certain. We have filed a patent recently on that concept. So right now I'm not talking about that. I will be talking about a system level, common hybrid microgrid, because this is what suits to your smart grid aspects as well, and your FDP is smart grid. So I'm talking about the system level. I expect the audience to be more like a power system and power oriented, not power electronics. So when I start talking about power electronics, then people get bored, and those especially don't have an interest are really uh, losing their attention. So let me talk a little bit mixed kind of aspects so that you will be connected for another 1 hour with me. Let me just to start with. Uh, uh, I hope this slide is visible to all of you. Just to confirm that my slide is moving.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so it is, the title is COVID-19 and Indian power sector. So just I was collecting few points a couple of months back, that what COVID has an impact on our distribution systems, and which actually lead to more possibility of renewable and storage, especially in our power distribution systems. So I just collected some of the points and I'm putting in front of you. First of all, there was a such situation. So government offered rebate to DISCOM for COVID-19 lockdown period. So government has directed all the central public sector generating companies, joint ventures and subsidiaries, and central public sector transmission company to offer a rebate to distribution companies to ensure round-the-clock power supply and bills to consumers during the lockdown period due to COVID-19 pandemic. So this was one thing government has taken initiative, that all the companies or responsible utilities that please ensure round the clock power supply so that people will not suffer furthermore. So this was the government initiative in this period, and also they offered certain rebates in their power supply because we know, especially in Uttar Pradesh and similar states, that if you run your power for more duration, there will be more losses and the companies will go on losses. So that is another aspect which we had to see 10 years back, that government has to cut down the power for 8 hours, 10 hours because they save the losses. That was a very poor way of regulating, but nothing can be done anyway. So due to pandemic decline in power trade in 2020, we have seen all that about 22.7% power uh, consumption has reduced because offices were closed, and still the things are going like that only. Most of the offices are closed and people are working from their home. So power requirement has gone down. That also affected the power companies. Then uh, there are some, the better lights also. The crashing of oil, moving solar possible because oil consumption reduced in a recent times. So the possibility of solar and other renewable has improved because all those issues, political and other problems, import restrictions were there. So these 3 points, and then further few points in favor of renewable energy, then that domestic solar manufacturing could benefit from pandemic. Uh, this was some better lights. Supply disruption from China and decline in domestic solar capacity addition due to pandemic offers a golden opportunity to local solar manufacturing. So a lot of boycott for the Chinese product, especially in a solar, and you have seen that the government has also increased duty on a Chinese product. So that and the solar products were one of the major things which were which we were dependent upon, the solar cells on the China. So there has been some opportunities gaining in Indian market, so to boost up the Indian manufacturers. So that was the opportunity also created for the Indian market. Similarly, in all sectors, not only solar, but in all. I'm talking about solar because this is one of the major renewable energy part in our country, and I'll show you also. Then MNRE grants blanket extension for RE projects amid lockdown because there was a lot of deadlines coming up for most of the projects, and because of all those problems, still problems is going on. Approachability, accessibility, all those problems are still going on. So the government has extension some of the projects. More extension have been granted. Then importance of using storage with increasing renewable energy storage solution to cater peak demand and to address the variability of intermittent, especially during pandemic, for over 300 gigawatt hour 2019 to 25, considering ESS and EV opportunities. ESS means energy storage and EV means electric vehicle. So there are a lot of opportunity for storage business or storage uh, devices to come up in another 10 years. I will show one more figure for that. Now, there are certain latest news I would like to share with you all, maybe useful for some of you. Just I was collecting yesterday night some points for you. That the lowest tariff was in Madhya Pradesh, Rewa, for some years back, but recent tender has shown that solar tariff has dropped down to new low of 1.99 per unit. Latest in a Gujarat option. So you can, unbelievable that solar power is being sold out at 1.99 rupee per unit. So you can see a very bright future for solar again. That such a cheap power, the companies are afford to provide. That means a lot of cost have gone down. So the latest round of auction for 500 megawatt world solar project in Gujarat has seen a tariff drops to a new low of 1.99 kilowatt hour in December 2020. So this slide is carrying news. That is why I have written a latest news for especially December 2020. All these are the development in this month. So this was very important development. You can remember this figure because we used to remember figure for Riva Madhya Pradesh auction for a long time, 2 rupees something paisa, 0. Paisa, something like that. Now this will be the new low point rupee, which has come to in a 1 rupee range. You can say 1.99. At least it gives a look of it is your 1 unit energy is available in 1 rupee 99 paisa per unit from solar. I can tell you about 10-12 years back, I heard when the solar plant in Allahabad, Naini, 5 megawatt that Naini power plant was installed, it was 16 rupee per unit 12 years back. So you can think of the cost down. 1 by 8, the cost have gone down. So fast, the cost have gone down. Everything is increasing. Every price is increasing, but solar production price is coming down. So this is really a very good development sign for our country, especially. Although it's a global trend, but especially for our country, it is a bless for us. That this is a new price for today. Then recently, 15th December, just 10 days back, the world's largest renewable solar and wind park in Gujarat, Kutch has been inaugurated on 15th December. It is yet to come up, but at least it has been inaugurated. The place have been identified because Gujarat, Kutch is very good in both sunshine and wind speed. Average wind speed is above 10 meters per second. So it's an ideal location for putting up a solar and wind hybrid power generation system. And it has been, it would be a world largest with a 30 gigawatt of such combined power. So 30 gigawatt is not a small unit, not small unit. It's a huge unit, 30 gigawatt. Then third important news which I collected is electric vehicles could account for 43% of total vehicle sales in India by 2030. This is not an official figure, but this is just a new study by Center for Energy Finance, right? That segment-wise EV sales, battery requirements, public charging infrastructure, and investment needed until 2030 to support 43% of electric vehicle sale. Maybe it will come up after 10 years. You will see most of us will be buying electric vehicles. So, but this is not official. It may be, just expectation. It's one of the study being carried out. So these are the few latest developments which actually lead to what I'm going to talk, and is something which is leading towards a smart grid or your renewable energy system or whatever distribution power system you are going to study will add up in that. Because I'm not going to talk directly to you a smart grid, but I'm talking to some inputs which are required, very useful in a smart grid systems. Okay, so I hope everybody, got what I conveyed to you. Any doubt to anyone or any query you can raise. Although I'm not expert in these data, I have just collected and presented, but still you can ask any quick question. Okay, I hope this slide is visible to all of you, just to confirm.
Yes, sir. Visible, sir.
Okay, good. Thank you. So this is another data which I am presenting to you, and it is because I am teaching this course right now in BTech final year. So I used to collect this data just to convey the important information. So this is again for this year data, although the data has been updated till July also. But as of 31st March, the closing of financial year, we have a total installed capacity of 370 gigawatt. Out of that, we have a hydro 45.7, which accounts for 12.4%. The major is thermal is still 230 gigawatt, 62.8%. The nuclear is 6.8 gigawatt, 1.9, and the more importantly, renewable has become 87 gigawatt, and which accounts for 23.5%. So we have already close to 1/4 of power capacity by renewable. Then if you split up that 87 gigawatt of renewable, so you will see that still the dominant one is the wind, which has about 43.3 gigawatt of wind available, with 45.6% share of wind. Solar is really coming fast with a share of 34.4 and with about 40% share by the solar. So this is a good sign. We started with about 5% or 2%. Now we are at a 40%. So solar, as you know, is growing very fast. Then another biopower is at around 9.8 gigawatt with 11%. This is our potential of renewable energy, and that is why we always talk so much about this renewable power in our country, because we have 750 gigawatt of potential. If we use all unutilized land, all this your rooftops, then we can generate 750 gigawatt of solar. So out of 750, we have still captured only about 34 gigawatt. Although we have a target of 100 gigawatt, I'll show you. The wind has a potential of 300 gigawatt, and we are still only captured 43 gigawatt out of this potential. This is our target. You can see the top one. I hope many of speaker will tell this. The first one, the renewable energy target 2020 175 gigawatt. This is a very common target, and we are just left 2 years. And this is what the breakup of this target: 100 gigawatt by solar, 60 gigawatt by wind, 10 gigawatt by bioenergy, and 5 gigawatt by small hydro. So this is all met up. Wind we are very close. Already we have reached 45. So 15 gigawatt is left, which will easily be achieved only with the help of that 40 gigawatt of power, this wind solar in Gujarat. And then 100 gigawatt of solar. This is what we have to double it within 2 years. And that's what this project is, one of the major thing which will actually add up the capacity, especially this one, 30 gigawatt of wind solar power. So this is what the state of art at the moment for our country. And a new target I was just mentioning, you might not have heard, that 450 gigawatt by 2030. This is a new target now. I don't think anybody has spoken about it because this is a very latest. So 175 by 2020, and then in another 8 years we have to grow it by 450 gigawatt. So the process will be continuous, and the importance will continue to be there for this renewable energy. This is about the 3 ways you can see the solar projects are lying. This is the rooftop. This is all the land large scale projects, which like 30 gigawatt and 8 gigawatt in Riva. This is how the look you will see, and I hope many of you might have seen. Okay, now let me come to something on what I wanted to deliver. This was just a beginning. I thought, let me give you some brief introduction of the importance of what I'm going to discuss and what the importance in a smart grid. So a microgrid is a low voltage distribution system with distributed resource energy, such as micro turbine, fuel cell, PV array, wind turbine, together with storage devices, example, flywheels, energy capacitor, batteries, controllable loads. These are the storage. These systems are interconnected to medium voltage distribution network, but may also be operated isolated from grid in case of fault in upstream network. So this is what the microgrid we define. Decision making and control is distributed. This is the importance of microgrid. This is the definition. This is the importance, and from functionality point of view, power flow is bidirectional. You can feed excess power to the grid. You can take short of power from the main grid in a microgrid. You can deliver the power to the load. You can take the power from the load also in case you have a solar powered devices. So it may be possible that you can take back the power. So this is all the features of a microgrid. It could be AC microgrid, it could be DC microgrid, it could be hybrid microgrid, which I am talking, right? So microgrid also, a lot of classifications are there. AC microgrid, DC microgrid, and then the hybrid microgrid, which is a combination of AC and DC buses. You can see here microgrid representation. You can see there is a mega grid, then there is a microgrid. In between that, you have so many things. Smart network technologies. You have a communication lines. You have another data protocols, data acquisition, remote sensing. So many things are there. Then there is a demand response, and this is a storage and flexible DG, flexible distributed generation. DG means. Then paradigm shift from redundancy to asset to intelligence. From redundancy in asset to intelligence. That's what the paradigm shift. Because earlier the concept was to create the assets and keep it in a backup, right? So that whenever you need a peak loads, you can connect and then you disconnect and all those things where with a typical hydro and thermal power plants. Now the paradigm is that you have everything available in an optimized manner. Why to keep in a backup? Let us utilize them in an intelligent manner. So this is what we call a paradigm shift from redundancy in asset to intelligence, right? So that's what we are shifting from mega grid to microgrid. Sorry, it's a combination of mega grid to microgrid. You can see these are the highlights of the microgrid systems. You have a main power grid. There is a point of common coupling. In that point of common coupling, you have this microgrid. This is what structure. This is a mega grid, you can say. This is a PCC, point of common coupling, and then you have a microgrid. In this microgrid, you have generators like solar, wind, so many others. Then you have loads, right? And then you have a small distribution system, buses, AC buses. You have a DC buses. You have a sensors. You have actuators. You have a communication line, and all those things are there to communicate power with the main grid, or you can say the mega grid. So that is microgrid controller. These are the highlights. Remote area electrification through renewables, differentiation of investment in bulk transmission and distribution network, improve energy efficiency, reduction of energy losses in the network, supports the central grid like a controllable load, improves reliability, saves from the mass outage or a blackout. So this is the highlight of the microgrid. Microgrid system architecture. Microgrid is composed of following elements, either interfaced or isolated from main system unit. Distributed energy resources. This is one of the main components, like solar, wind, micro turbines, fuel cell, etc. Energy storage devices like batteries, ultra capacitors, magnetic energy storage unit, flywheel, pumped storage, these are the energy storage. DC and AC loads, you have a different type of loads. Interlinking and interfacing converter, right? This is another thing. This is exactly the power electronics. Then, so these are the main components of a microgrid, right? You must have these things to make a microgrid. A microgrid are classified into AC microgrid, DC microgrid, and hybrid AC-DC microgrid, depending upon the way AC and DC buses and corresponding system elements are connected. So these are the main components of a microgrid. This is a look you can see. You have a AC microgrid. This is the AC microgrid. You have a main grid. You have a point of common coupling. Then you have a protective switches. That is the static solid state switches. And then you have all AC devices, because you have an AC bus, one AC bus, two AC bus, three AC bus, and all are feeding different type of load. Feeder 1, feeder 2, feeder 3. Different types of loads are, AC loads are connected on a different loads. So in this microgrid, if you have a PV module, so obviously you have to use DC to AC converter. If you have a battery or ultra capacitor, you have to use DC to AC. If you have a wind, then you have to convert AC to DC and then DC to AC, because everything has to be combined on a bus. So this feeder 2 is actually a both bidirectional bus. You have a loads also, and then you have a source also. Similarly, feeder 1 is also bidirectional. You have a source and you have a loads. But feeder 3 is only the load bus. It doesn't have any source available. So a mixed kind of feeders will be there. That's what I mentioned, that there will be a mixed situations. Now in a DC microgrid, you can see there is a same transformer PCC, but then there has to be a AC to DC converter from the main grid, because main is AC. So you need AC to DC converter in order to have a combination with a main grid. And then everything is DC. You have a battery, so you need DC to DC converter. You have a solar PV, so you need DC to DC converter. And if you have a wind, then you have a AC to DC converter. So number of conversion stages are reduced. Then you have a DC load directly feeding from the bus, DC loads. Then you have another DC load, which are low voltage DC loads like charging, 12 volt, 48 volt chargers. So you need DC to DC converter. If you have an AC load, then you need a DC to AC. So this is a AC microgrid and this is a DC microgrid. And this is a hybrid microgrid. Now in this hybrid microgrid, you have AC bus and a mixed bus, both source and load. And this is a DC bus where you have AC to DC converter, and then you have a source and a load. So this is a look of a hybrid microgrid. Configuration of hybrid microgrid, integration of DER in AC microgrid could be done either in a single or three-phase depending on the consumer load. Three-phase converter in distributed energy resources integrated to AC are trending. The current research literature focuses on the following issues in the grid connected and islanded mode of operation of the microgrid. These are the power quality aspects and also the research direction in the microgrid. Voltage sags well in each phase is one of the problem, because you have to look upon the voltage stability, grid voltage unbalanced conditions, reactive power requirements of various equipment and the system, active power delivery or curtailment, whatever you can call. So some of the latest issues which we have to deal up, apart from a lot of other issues. You can see AC microgrid with centralized distributed energy generation. You can see that battery, it's a centralized converter. There is a one controller, centralized distributed energy generation we call, and then from there everything is controlled. This is battery. This battery which is connected to the AC bus. This is solar PV connected to the AC bus, three-phase. This is PV connected to the AC bus, solar PV another. And this is the main three phases going from AC bus to the various loads. And this is the interlinking converter from main AC bus to the DC grid. So this is how, and this is the main utility supply. Right. So this is a centralized. Then there will be a distributed microgrid. This is the centralized microgrid, and this is a distributed microgrid. In a distributed microgrid, everything is distributed. You can see every load, every house has the generation, every and has a load also. It has a generation, it has a load, and it is connected throughout the DC AC bus in a distributed manner. So this is the distributed, and control is there at every bus. Every load there is a control. You can switch from load to source, source to load. Everything is available in a single distributed manner. So this is a distributed DC microgrid, distributed microgrid. The decentralized distributed conversion generation, DER, installed within the household premises, right? So we are trending towards this concept of decentralization. Hybrid AC-DC microgrid configuration, various configurations are there. Okay. Coupled AC hybrid microgrid, decoupled AC microgrid. Coupled one is directly connected to the grid by a transformer and a bidirectional AC to DC converter or DC network, and in decoupled bidirectional AC to DC and DC to AC, which means there is no direct connection between power grid and AC network of the microgrid. So you can see the figure also, coupled and the decoupled, it's all available here. Then control aspects, which we people are more concerned. So whenever there is a microgrid aspect, so there is a three-layer of control. A primary control, we set the current and voltage references. This is the most, lowest level, or I can say the converter level control. We have to control the current and voltage in a primary control. Then we have a parallel DER. Inverters have automatic tendency of PQ sharing and FP regulation. So this is exactly at the converter level how you control your converters. Secondary control acts as a centralized automatic generation controller and checks steady state error in a microgrid voltage and frequency using communication. So in a very short, you can say this is an instantaneous control. A primary control is an instantaneous control, and secondary control is a steady state control, right? Both are control, and this is at a generation level AGC like automatic generation controller, which actually corrects the steady state errors, right? Where this is exactly at a converter level. So instantaneous control, primary control, steady state control, secondary control. And this is actually the supervisory control, tertiary level, and it is mainly governed by the market optimization, active and reactive references for various requirements. So this is the, you can say, supervisory, this is steady state, and this is instantaneous. This is in my language, but actual language is mentioned in this slide. Actually, it governs by the hierarchical control. First of all, you have a tertiary, which is global. Then you have a secondary, which is microgrid, and then the primary, which is local, right? So global, microgrid, and the local, right? This is how you can see the hierarchical control of this microgrid. Tertiary, market participation, interconnected management, coordination of multiple microgrids, optimization of variables, cost efficiency, etc. Secondary, droop control, voltage droop control, you know it's very popular in microgrid. Active and reactive power control, grid synchronization. This is there in a secondary level. Protection scheme, primary protection, power sharing, voltage frequency stability in islanded mode. current and voltage control. So according to me, the most important thing in a primary is a current and voltage control at the converter level, that we talk in power electronics, right? So this is power electronics, this is power system, and this is your market, deregulation and other things. That's what, again, in my language. Okay, you can see the control of microgrid, again the same thing from tertiary. This is what the market constraint and other things. Then this is secondary. The wide area monitoring is all there. This is the market scenario, wide area monitoring. This is purely a power system. You are setting a reference for voltage, frequency, reactive, real power, and ultimately the primary control is your going to voltage and current control at the converter level. So all three type of control I have tried to show you in a different manner so that you will perfectly remember what I am talking about. There are three very important controls we call. I mean, when you write papers and other literature, then you might be seeing that grid forming or islanded power converters, right? So system voltage and frequency is regulated by balancing the generated power and load demands when the microgrid operates in islanded mode. Grid feeding or grid connected power converters, right? Units adjust the output active and reactive power on power dispatch strategy, frequency, voltage variation, and grid supporting units are controlled to extract maximum active power from their primary energy source and required reactive power to support grid. So this is a converter level classification. Which part converter you are fixing up and what is the role of converter? So islanded mode of control, grid connected mode, and grid supporting mode for a weak grid system especially. So then beyond microgrid, this is what I taught you about the microgrid. And then when you combine this microgrid, you actually want to have a smart grid. So what is there in a smart grid? IT and communication, intelligence and power. These three are the major subcomponent of a smart grid. And when you combine them, right, you will create a smart grid. So there will be many speakers who will be talking about this. I'm not talking much on this. Smart grid is an amalgamation of electrical infrastructure, information and communication technology. Yeah, these are some of the things, again, from the smart grid point of view. You have a resource, you have a collector, controller, accessor, displayer, and all those things. Collection of real-time data from sensor across the grid. High-speed, sufficient and efficient communication system. Intelligent computation and IT infrastructure. Real-time analysis and control. Okay, now let me talk another component of a, this is a smart grid or a microgrid, which is one of the very important, where we need a lot of development actually. I would tell you that we have made a lot of development in terms of power system, distribution system, then this distributed resources, renewable resources, their control, power electron. We did so many development and it has been remarkable. But a development which still need a lot of research is the storage. Frankly, I am telling you, storage is not compatible with our power system today. As far as medium and high power systems are concerned, we are still far behind as per the development in the case of distributed resources, renewable energy, and the power system. We need a very good storage research, and it will take another, I guess, 20 to 30 years to come up and be compatible with the requirements of the power system. Anyway, whatever available we can talk about right now. We have certain development is still like we have a mechanical storage, which are pumped hydro, compressed air, flywheel. These are the conventional mechanical storage, and still they are the main storage used in most of the power generating stations, especially the thermal power and hydropower. Flywheel is one of the main component used in a thermal power generation. You store the excess power in a rotating flywheels, which is a very big small mass. So you store kinetic energy in the form of potential energy, half mv square. You take a very big mass in a rotating form, you store the complete energy. Compressed air, you compress your air with the available pump and then compress the air. Like a spring, you compress it, and when you need the energy, you release it. It's something like that. Then pumped hydro, very popular in a hydropower station. You take the water head to the height using pumps, and then you keep the water at a higher level in the form of a potential energy. And then when you need, you release the water and you drive your turbine. So these are the three mechanical, purely mechanical way of storing the energy. But remember that these are the three main high power storage. We cannot replace this, although we call them inefficient because a lot of power is wasted in a form of heat and other losses. But still they are the main storage as far as generation level competency is concerned. Mechanical storage, we have this big market for this. All our low power distribution are governed by the electrochemical storage, which are basically the batteries. We have a lead acid battery used in your common inverters. We have a nickel cadmium battery which is used in your laptops and mobile chargers. And we have another technologies of the batteries. Some of them have a very good efficiency, voltage levels, life period, everything comparisons are there. But this is the batteries. I mean, you can say all of our are governed by batteries nowadays. We are running our mobiles, it is on battery. We are driving our laptops, which is on battery. So we are, I mean, because we are the low power consumption units. So we have good compatibility in a low power applications. But still we need a good competency in medium and high power. There are some development in a battery technology. We are getting flow batteries, which we call redox flow, hybrid flow, and batteries are coming up. And battery technology, I mean, to my surprise also, I was just talking to few experts from Australia a couple of days back in a PEDES conference, and I come to know that they are preparing, I mean, I'm talking about Australia, they are preparing a centralized mega battery unit. Can you believe it? A mega watt hour battery power. I mean, like you have a thermal power generation of 660 megawatt. Something like they are creating a battery storage of such a huge centralized unit in a whole Australia. And what for? They want to use such big storage for stabilization of your power system, for short-term of power during blackouts and frequency destabilization. So it's almost recent development, and we may see such developments in our country also in the near future. Who knows that? We have a substation, generating station, which is actually full battery. A full battery is a generating station, and I can call it as a 1000 megawatt. I mean, it's unbelievable. So battery technology has to go very long. And electrochemical battery is right now playing a big role. Okay, so let's talk about the storage technology is electrical storage. Is supposed to be a most efficient. But unfortunately is the least utilized because of its limitations. we cannot store electrical energy directly in a form of electrical technology. And what are the electrical two more important technology of storing energy? One is electrostatic storage and other is electromagnetic storage. You know, the capacitors are based on electrostatic technology and we call ultra capacitor or super capacitors. So we can store energy in electrostatic form, in electrical, purely electrical, no chemical, no mechanical, and supposed to be the most efficient. But unfortunately, we cannot store a large power in ultra capacitor. So we say ultra capacitor have a very high power density, but it has a very low energy density, unlike the batteries. So you can use ultra capacitor for a short-term supply of power for a few cycles, just to maintain a starting current in a motors, just to maintain a stabilizing power for a main grid or micro grid. But it cannot be used as a main power supply, like your mobile cells and the batteries, laptops. Unfortunate part. So a lot of development is required in this direction. And another very important is the superconducting magnetic coil. It is storing energy in a electromagnetic form, like your inductor. So we have a large inductor. The basic concept of in this superconducting magnetic coil is that you store the energy in a this inductive form, magnetic form in inductors with zero resistance. So you reduce the temperature of a coil in such a level that the resistance got zero, and if the zero resistance, the energy whatever is stored cannot be discharged. That is basic concept of superconducting magnetic coil, right? And the basic concept of ultra capacitor is reduce the spacing between the plates, because the capacity is inversely proportional to D. C is inversely proportional to D. So if you reduce the D to zero, the capacity become infinite. So that is the basic concept. The reduce D to zero to make the capacity infinite, reduce resistance to zero to make the storage capacity of the coil infinite. That is the basic concept. Now let us explore, all of you. You have a good research area in this particular aspect. You can go and pick up some of the area and you can do the research. And it's a big area. Storage is a big area in the future. You have to make a development in this area, and then only the Indian power sector or the global power sector will, in real terms, will become compatible. And your smart grid concept will really be a dream come true if you really develop your storage. This is the glimpse of future power sector which you can have in a future. That's how you have smart control center. You have a e-distribution. You have a municipal corporation. Smart control center will be there. Smart buildings. We have a concept of net zero building, NGZB, net zero building. What is net zero building? That a building is self-sufficient to power its own loads. That is the concept of NZB, net zero building. Okay, and it becomes a smart building with all renewables, solar, wind attached to it. Then you have, you can see the microgrids powering the whole thing. Then you have even offshore wind turbines, very nicely pictured here. Offshore concept of offshore wind turbine, because offshore wind turbines are more eco-friendly and more efficient because there is no disruption and the wind speed is very good. This is a wind park and this is a solar park. So this is the type of a Gujarat model just I mentioned. 30 megawatt of wind solar park. You can see this, then e-distribution of the power, right? So many things you can see here. Everything is available. Smart transportation means e-vehicles. That is all coming up. Charging units you can see here. Charging units you can see. This is a charging unit, very small picture, but you can see here a vehicle is parked here and it is charging. So these are all the charging stations which look like in the near future. I mean, we have seen where recently I visited Europe. In Lisbon, I have seen that there are a set of chargers alongside the parking, and a person have to just plug in their vehicles to get it charged. So very soon all these things are coming up. As I mentioned, that 40% of vehicles may become on electrified, so e-vehicles, and this is what the future things will be. For the now, I will be showing you something. This is all the theoretical and the conceptual things which I was just talking about. I was just talking about all the theory kind of things. Maybe it is how and when you will realize all these things, whatever just talked about. I will be just telling you some of our work which we have done towards the development of these technologies. So I just mentioned we have a project and we did something on that project and try to create a laboratory models, actual models, uh, with everything implemented, renewables, converters, loads. So the major components which we have in our system or in a load, we have a wind emulator, because you know Uttar Pradesh or even our North India is very poor in the wind. So you have average speed ranging from 3 to 5 meter per second in our whole North India, right? So you can think of this 3 to 5 meter per second is below cutting speed of the wind turbines. So even if you install wind turbine, there will be no output power. At one time, about 5 years back, we were almost planning to install wind turbine in our institute, I mean our department. But then we realized that in most of the part of the year there will be no power. So I mean thrown out this idea of installing a wind turbine. Rather than we purchase the wind emulator, which is actually nothing but a motor generator set, and then we try to emulate the property of wind turbine, and we implemented in our lab. Solar is very popular, so solar is not an issue. It's all available. We have 4 set of solar power, laboratory scale solar power, 500 watt, 1 kilowatt, 1.1 kilowatt, then 2.3 kilowatt, and then 4 kilowatt solar plants installed in the top of our lab for the purpose of laboratory, not for the power generation purpose. For power generation at MNNIT Allahabad, we have 1 megawatt of solar installed rooftop solar plant. I hope it is everywhere in all the government buildings. That is purely for generation purpose. But we have a dedicated 4 set of plants for research purpose. So we have used a wind emulator, we have used a solar plant to combine them to get a hybrid AC/DC microgrid. So this is a test bench for a hybrid AC/DC microgrid. This is 2.3 kilowatt, sorry, this is 1.5 kilowatt solar plant, and this is 1.5 kilowatt wind turbine emulator. So we combine them through a suitable DC to DC converter, and then AC to DC and DC to DC to get a 380 volt bus. So this is a 380 volt bus we have used as a DC bus, and from here we used a DC to DC and DC to AC, a bidirectional converter, so that I have a DC to AC of 230 volt to power our normal AC loads, and we have DC to DC to get a 24 or 48 volt bus to drive our normal battery loads, supercapacitor, DC loads, etc. So this is all what we implemented in our laboratory, and these are the loads, residential loads, and we use some of the DC loads also. We purchase DC fans, DC LED, DC, I mean charger, and all those things we purchase to connect across the DC bus. So, and then we implemented all these converters, DC to DC converters, DC to AC, AC to DC, then bidirectional converters, and then battery storage. We have a bidirectional isolated DAB. All these things we have implemented in our laboratory, created the this to work with this project. Okay, so you can see this is how we implemented. Just I was mentioning that we have a wind turbine emulator. So we connected a three-phase diode bridge rectifier first of all, and then a boost converter to draw a maximum power. We have a PMSG wind turbine, so we are drawing the power from this boost converter with MPPT incorporated in this wind turbine. And then there is a solar PV, of course. We have a boost converter for MPPT, again connected to the same bus. We have a battery storage, which is connected through a bidirectional DAB, dual active bridge, not a dual active bridge, normal buck boost converter bidirectional. It's a non-isolated. Then we have ultra capacitors. We combine this also with this microgrid and also to this to provide a short-term power. So this is all we combine on a common DC bus of 380 volt. This is a 380 volt DC bus. Now this 380 DC bus, we are converted an interlinking converter with a main grid and AC loads. You can see here, it's a single phase AC converter, and we are connected to AC grid and also to the load to supply the AC loads. Then we have used a buck converter for stepping down 380 volts to the 48 volt low voltage DC bus to supply the charging loads directly, DC loads. And then we have a medium voltage load which we can directly feed from 380 volt DC bus. So this is a structure which we have all implemented in our labs through suitable controls like our many FPGA controls and microcontrollers and many things. It's all there. Look, this is the data what we have tested in our laboratory. The complete data is there. 1.5 kilowatt residential load, LVDC 400 watts, 400 watt and 448 volt. Then MVDC load 700 watt, 380 volt. Dump loads are there 2.5 kilowatt, 380 volt. AC loads 600 watt, 0.9 power factor. Then 400 watt, 0.97 power factor. Solar PV system 1.5 kilowatt. Wind system 1.5 kilowatt, just mentioned to you. Wind system is actually the emulator. Battery storage we have 48 volt, 300 ampere hour, right? And then supercapacitor bank we have created 96 volt, 50 farad supercapacitor bank. Then utility grid is single phase 230 with normal utility grid. DC link capacitor 2200 microfarad. AC DC filters are there. Then DC bus voltages 380 volt MVDC and 48 volt LVDC. And battery limits are 15 ampere plus minus. So this is the data. This is all we try to collect everything, assemble at one place and try to work it around. Single phase AC is 230 volt, 50 hertz. These are some of the results. Just, results may be what it's all. Right now simulations result. We have experiment. I'm not sharing those. I'm just sharing with the simulation results. Then you have a solar PV, solar radiation drop, wind speed. It's all combined power. Then LVDC load, MVDC load, the total AC load. So this is about load. This is about the solar and wind, right? And then this is the power transfer from the solar, from the DC bus to the AC bus. This is all the power diagram. And this is the reactive power flow diagram. So in short, this is the source supply, renewable supply. This is the load. This is the power, real power, and this is the reactive power. And how they are changing with the change in solar radiation, wind speed, load change, everything we have tried to demonstrate in this particular picture. These are the instantaneous plots which are showing how the current is actually controlled. You can say the primary control. This is the secondary control and this is the primary control. We have no tertiary control in our system because we are not governed by the market and we are not governed by the system. So this is basically a primary control. We have used controls like hysteresis current control, droop control method, sliding mode control. All those controls are at the primary level. A PI controller for DC voltage control. And these are the tertiary level controls where we use PQ reference, instantaneous reference control. All these are used in a secondary level. Okay, some of the another set of results, especially for the batteries, you can say the state of charge of the battery is increasing, decreasing when the power is short, battery is charging, power is excess, battery is charging, power is short, battery is discharging. So this is all the state of uh, SOC level, state of charge level, and this is all the ESS and the grid power flows has been shown here. The battery power and with respect to the grid power, it is all shown here. Islanded mode, this is the islanded mode when the system get isolated from the grid, then how you can change the system. We have actually the option of changing the primary control from current control to the voltage control using sliding mode control. Current control mode is we are undertaking with the help of a hysteresis current control, and the islanded mode, when we shift, we come to the voltage control mode because we need to control a voltage in that case. So we use sliding mode control, and this is what the voltage control mode of operation has been shown here. This is all the again the power diagrams in islanded condition. The load is changing, battery is charging, battery is discharging, wind drops, solar radiation drop, MVDC load on, so everything is coming down. The battery is getting discharged, and this is how the AC and DC power is getting changed. Then again the islanded mode with a battery, further few more results. So power remaining same, you can see the power remaining same. Battery is managing everything with the change in solar radiation. We have to increase the dump load in case you don't have a load. You have to use the switched dump load. Dump load has got importance in renewable energy, especially in case of wind turbine system. You need a dump load. Okay, so some few more results and few more system you can see here. This is how we are doing solar and PV, solar battery combination. Solar is with unidirectional power, battery with a bidirectional power, and how we are controlling at a primary level the DC link voltage in a microgrid. Okay, exactly this is, earlier one was a simulation platform. Now this is exactly the experimental platform and how we did it actually in experiments, everything. These are some again simulations. I'm not going there. Yeah, this is the look of experimental setup in the laboratory. So what we have done actually, we have used, you can see the two boxes on the bottom. So because you know the students works in the night, so you don't have a solar in a night. So we have a solar simulator. It's a Agilent solar simulator, which is capable of generating 2 kilowatt of solar power with exactly the having the same characteristic of a solar PV. Exactly the same characteristic, and it is a user-defined characteristic. So this is a very costly instrument we purchased about 4 years back from Agilent, and creating and mainly for the research to do in a laboratory scale, because it may not be always possible to do the research with the main solar coming. One reason is that the radiation is variable, temperature is variable, and we do not have a control over it. Other thing is in night, especially when you work in the night, then you need a solar simulator so that you can create exact the same characteristic. Another unit I am showing you is a load simulator. This is another very costly equipment from Chroma, and it is costing about 7 to 8 lakh rupee. We procured it 3 years back, and the characteristic of this load is that you can create any profile of a load up to up to I think 1 kilowatt, any profile of load. Let's say constant voltage load, constant power load, constant current load, non-linear load. All such profiles can be created without actually using those loads, right? So this is about load and source. Wind emulator is there on a side by. It's not visible in this picture. These all are converters. This is energy storage. You can see the battery, small battery, and this is the DC capacitor. Uh, can I see ultra capacitor? It is there. I don't see it over here, but ultra capacitors are also there. This is DC bus. Then you have this controller. This is a controller which is housing uh, the solar PC interface and a lot of controller interface, especially the FPGA controller we are using in current control. This is the Atmega normal microcontroller which is used for wind turbine controls. So this is all what I just wanted to give you a sense of microgrid work which we have done and state of art, and a few more things which are very useful for you to further pursue your research work and convey to your student that what kind of research a student can do for BTech projects, also small projects. Out of all these you can provide, you can give them MTech thesis topics out of these, and if anybody is doing PhD, it's a perfect topic for that. So I was just seeing the watch, and it is perfect 10:30. I thought let me stop here. Thank you very much for your kind attention and patience. I hope I could deliver and try to reach to your expectations. I
Thank you,
was a
sir.
bit quick, let me be very frank, because I was having a time frame in my mind, so I wanted to complete everything in time. So thank you. Now, any question, please feel free to ask any question. Over to Vijay. I am finished now.
Sir, dear participants, if you are having any queries, please ask, sir. Sir, in chat box, so one student is asking that, sir, what is the
Yes.
impact of green energy on employment?
Yeah, it's a very relevant question actually, because we are suffering badly from the employment aspects. Frankly, I was just thinking 10 years back that there will be a lot of openings in a area of renewable and energy, and there will be a lot of employment created for our students and all our technocrats. I am still hopeful that the employment will be opened up, but unfortunately, the way we thought, it is not going in that way. The technology is coming, uh, the green energy is getting installed day by day. We are getting new targets, and the emphasis of the government is also to create more employment. But I'm not saying, I'm personally not very happy about the employment proportional to the green energy, as you people are expecting also. But hope so things. The main reason which I felt actually, the main reason I felt that because of this cost compatibility, everybody is going on a cost 1.99 rupee per unit. Then who will afford to employ more people? Who will afford to employ more people if you are having a cost constraint? And everybody is going on a cost constraint. So people are little bit shying of uh, uh, keeping more persons in their plants and other things. And plants are running almost on a no person basis. This people have to address. I mean, companies have to address to create more employment so that with more people on the plant, you have more efficiency getting out. But definitely, the issues are actually right now going on a cost. So I'm not personally happy about what the question you asked is truly very relevant, but the things are not going in that direction. I have also presented you data by 2030, 475 gigawatt. So everybody expect that the employment will also go by in the same ratio. But as
Thank you, sir.
seen till now, it's not going in that direction. Let's hope for better. Let's hope. Let's hope.
Thank you, sir. So,
Okay,
Dr.
another thing I
S.
want to point out actually at this point of time, because see what is all happening, why the employment is not created. The main reason is that we are totally import dependent. Our solar cell technology is totally import dependent. We are not manufacturing solar cell. We are manufacturing only the panels or modules. So basically, it's all very good fabrication labs, very good uh, packaging units we need actually to be more self-reliant and to create more jobs. Right now, what is all happening? Everything is coming in a smart packages. And if something goes wrong, we have to be dependent upon the supplier or the original person manufacturer. And our engineers cannot do anything. They can only at the maintenance stage. Anyway, so thank you for this question and let me thank you. Any other question?
Thank you, sir. So, Dr. S.K. Pandey sir is asking that what are the main issues with the DC microgrid compared to AC microgrid?
Okay, yeah, it is another very pertaining question that the issue with a DC microgrid is that we don't have at the moment a DC loads. That is one thing. So the big issue with a DC microgrid is that we have to create the whole residential place on DC. That means we must develop a DC loads. For example, tomorrow you are going to buy a charger for your mobile. Okay? So the technology has to come up that the DC chargers are freely available. Right? Similarly, DC fans, it should be freely available. It is available right now. So this is one aspect of the challenge with the DC microgrid. Another aspect is that we need a very good converter and control technology for getting a DC microgrid, because right now we are very good in AC technology. We have a very good transformer. We are very good in switch gears. We have AC controllers, panels. Everything is very good, but technology is not growing in the DC. We don't have, suppose, DC boost converter available off shelf to suit your DC microgrid. We don't have a DC. I mean, you should have a DC circuit breaker. You should freely availability of solar modules generating DC directly, right? So everything is right now AC oriented. So this is all, and then we have to develop prototypes. We have to, like we are adopting villages, we have to adopt villages for the DC microgrid. The whole village is on DC, then only the things will come up. So it's a good area to work on for you people, because I understand especially the RECs have to be more rural oriented, and this is one of the very big area which RECs can play. Create a small villages, create a small areas on DC, and let us work out. Yeah, very important thing. I hope anything else on this DC, because I just try to deliver from what I thought.
Thank you, sir. Sir, Ranvijay Singh is asking that which is more reliable, DC microgrid or AC microgrid?
Okay, at the moment it is AC microgrid which is more reliable. There is no doubt about it. Because everything is well matured. Technology is well matured for AC microgrid. And we actually, I mean, something we have to do actually. We have to shift to the DC microgrid in a so, I mean, until and unless we have a ready components, we cannot do anything for DC microgrid. Reliability, but yeah, once we are established, the number of conversion stage will reduce. So in future, once we are developed, we will be really very good reliability on DC microgrid. Everything very compact, everything ready to use. Plug and play kind of thing may happen if you really develop a DC microgrid. So time will come as per the reliability.
Thank you, sir. Any queries? Thank you, sir. Thank you for more valuable and informative lecture. I think participants also enjoyed a lot. They have got sufficient knowledge for the research also, sir. Thank you, sir, for spending some time with us. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you very much to all of you. Thank you to Vijay who was coordinating our students. A lot of our students are there in this meeting. So,
Sir, thank you very much, sir. I would like to once again congratulate to you on the behalf of REC for achieving a top 2% position in World Scientist under the category of Electrical and Electronics published by Stanford University. Sir, it's really a proud moment for us as being your student. Thank you so much, sir.
thank you. Be free to be in contact. So participants, I know that all of you are connected to this our stage. So do good work and all the best to all of you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. So, dear participants, next session will start at 12 o'clock. So, please join at least 5 minutes before starting of the session.